Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're using the Haunted palette from Gourmand Girls to do this eyeshadow look, and I found myself talking about some feelings I've had lately when it comes to being a mom and finding that you've lost yourself and how we can come back around, find ourselves again, and make time for our own personal hobbies, for our own personal development, while still pouring out into everyone else. I always prime my eyes before I start an eyeshadow look. In the very beginning I used concealer, but then I bought an actual eye primer. What I have now is the Glamlight Icing Primer. This is the shade Buttercream, and when I'm doing a really light toned or pastel look, then I use the shade White Frosting. Sometimes I just use whichever one I grab first, more often than not. I want to play with the Haunted palette from Gourmand Girls. Looks like this. I've only played with this once before on camera. I have used it off camera, and I think that I want to try this shimmer specifically because it looks to be a different, less sparkly, less glittery formula compared to all the other shimmers in the palette. I used this one on camera last time and it was really reflective, so I really want to try this and just see how it is. I think I'm going to be pairing it with kind of these darker murky tones, maybe do something quite deep. And then I do have a palette pull-in, and according to my notes I'm on shade number 5, and I'm working through the Lure palette from Blend Bunny, so this is shade number 5. It's called Sailor's Delight. I'm thinking I'll bring in like the mustardy tones from Haunted, and Sailor's Delight will play nicely with those. I have a loose idea. Let's go. All right, I want to start with the shade Horrify. This is the deep green in the palette. I'll place that in this outer space. I was talking to my husband this morning about motherhood and how you feel like you lose yourself. For reference, we have 3 children. We've had at least 6 pregnancies, but 3 children, ages 12, 3, and 1. Oh, I love that shade. I love these green tones, murky and earthy and still colorful and bold, but also very grounded. Anyway, I was talking about, especially since we had such a big age gap between the children, I had kind of found myself again, gotten into hobbies, started doing things I wanted to do, was able to maybe leave my daughter home alone for a little while, or she could cook her own meals or bathe herself. And then we started again in a way, and it's been a little bit of a challenge to, it's a challenge as a mother to maintain who you are, to personally develop yourself while also raising children. Into the light yellow now, which is called Obsessed, and I'll put this here. I think it's hard to maintain who you are in the season of motherhood where you've got very little people, and these children, they need you for everything, and they're touching you for everything, and they're pursuing you and relying upon you for everything. Like, they can breathe on their own, they can definitely make diapers on their own, but they need you for everything. I've found, and I think this has been exacerbated or amplified with having more children and also a big gap, because I was able to be more independent as my daughter became more independent. I have a napkin on my lap and I wipe off the brush and I'll tap these edges. I was talking to my sister-in-law the other day, and this is how the conversation began with my husband as well. We were discussing needing a break, and she's got 5 children, so how we can get a break to just go away from these people whom we absolutely love. We love them to bits, but we really need a break from them. And I told her that my husband is in school, so I rarely ask for his help during the semester because he's working full-time and he's studying full-time and trying his best to balance his own time management and learning multiple languages and work and family and church responsibilities and things like that. So I don't usually ask for his help during the semester with childcare or bedtimes or anything like that, baths, Sometimes I do, and he will step in anyway, and he often cooks our meals at dinner time if he's home. But look at the match, it matches. I don't often ask for help during the semester, but then when his semester's over, I put a date on the calendar and I check with his schedule, like, what do you have going on? But I need a day off, like an entire day. Maybe I'll feed the kids breakfast and then I jet out. I take the car and I go take some time for myself. And he's home with the girls, And I have found that to be the most renewing and necessary experience, because by that time, what is that? 2, maybe 3 times a year, I just really am overstimulated and need a day off. I've gotten better at communicating that to him over the years. I'm saying, listen, this is what I'm feeling and I really need a break. It has to happen because I'm burned out. I don't want to be touched, I don't want to be talked to, I don't want to be looked at. I'm going to deepen this further now with the black, which is called, I've only used this palette like 2 times and my lettering is already wearing off on the black shade. What's it called? Troubled. It's called Troubled. Really going for deep and dramatic. Smoky. I think this green shimmer is going to lighten things up a lot, so I like the contrast. In telling my sister-in-law what I do, like I said, the last time I took a day off, I went rollerblading by myself at this path, which I have literally driven past every day for the last 2 years, and I kept thinking that'd be so great for rollerblading, but I'm not going to try to do it with 3 children. And so I went and I rollerbladed on that path, and then I went to the gas station and I got myself an ice cream Snickers. Just one little treat for me. Then I went, I think I went to the library and I just sat and I read a book in quiet for a while. And then I went to my favorite chocolate shop and I got some lunch and I got a delicious chocolate treat and I sat with my book or with a letter to my sister or with the last 4 issues of a magazine that I haven't had a chance to read yet. And when I came home after being away almost the entire day, I was so excited to see my children and my husband. I was so delighted. I wanted to see their faces and kiss them and hug them and hold them and hear their voices and see the excitement in their faces when I walked in the door. And I was feeling renewed and refreshed. And it was just necessary because I was burned out. I'm gonna take my finger into the green shimmer, which is called Eerie. I don't know if it'll be better with finger or a brush, but I think that this formula in general has worked better with the finger. I almost always start my shimmers on the center of the lid because then I can decide, all right, if they're too dark, I'll keep them over here. If they're quite light, I might take them this direction, or maybe I need to bridge the gap between colors or whatever. But I almost always start in the center. Now this is definitely not as sparkly, I think, as the others, but it's quite impactful. It's very much there. I'm just taking the brush I used for the black. Yep. Okay. Now I'll go into Unearthly, which is, I'm just tapping in really lightly, Unearthly. Like I used this one, and now I'm into this one a little bit. And I'm gonna put it right on top, just to brighten up, basically in the very center of my eye, the apex of the eyeball. Not even covering all of that green, I just want a little whisper of additional sparkle. Yep, that's nice. And now, let's try out the palette pull-in. This one up here, Sailor's Delight. I think I'll take that on my pinky because I'm going to be putting it in a smaller space. I need a mirror. The Lure palette doesn't have a mirror. Initially, I was planning on putting this on the lower lash line, but I think I might just put it here. I mean, that's interesting. It's a very different texture, different formula. I hear my toddler calling for me, so I will be right back. Okay, honestly, I think that's pretty cool. A little unexpected. I was not planning on doing this. This definitely has taken a turn. I don't think I dislike it though. I think I want the lower lash line to be pretty smoky now. So I'll go into a tighter brush, and I think I will pick up, first I'll pick up Obsessed, which is the lighter of the yellow mattes. That's already over here, so I'm just gonna brighten right there a little bit more. Now I'll go back into Horrify. Why not? I really like that green. Where was I? Speaking of little people, I got derailed. Well, the point is that this kind of a day refreshes and renews me. I was talking to my sister-in-law about it and encouraging her to work that out with her husband as well. It's just exhausting, and it's beautiful and it's fulfilling and it's rewarding, motherhood, but it's also exhausting. And currently I'm just feeling so tired, and the semester just began. I'm so tired. Weary, same brush into the black. I think that the last 2 or 3 years, like with the age gap in our children starting again being 10 years older and just now having 2 young children, this is the first time in my life where I feel like I've kind of lost myself or am at risk of losing myself and who I am and my own hobbies, my own interests. And that is why I work so hard to maintain them. Eyeshadow and my art business and painting and trying to be physically active in some way. Like our bikes were stolen, but I got rollerblades, learning a language, practicing an instrument, doing something to personally develop. And I do actually have more hobbies and more interests than I have time. But that doesn't mean it's not worth trying. It doesn't mean it's not worth doing something. I remember a mom that we knew growing up. She never put any time into developing herself. She was so focused on her children, and that's not a bad thing. But the problem was that when her children grew up and left home, went on to live their own lives, she didn't know who she was. She was just a shell. Like, she had never continued her own personal interests, and it was so sad. In contrast, I watched my mom very specifically pursue her own hobbies. She was interested in woodworking, so she had woodworking tools in the basement and she would work on a little project or cross stitch or some sort of handicraft. She would take college classes to pursue an interest. And I know that this is easier to do when your children are older, but I don't want to be lost when my children are older. I want to try to continue being who I am and rounding myself out as a person, even when they're young, because I think that's a good example to set. Of course, you can go too far. You can take it to the point of all of your hobbies take over your life, and now your kids have the example of not being a priority, and mom was always interested in her own stuff and never gave us any time. You can go too far with anything, but it was very valuable for me now as an adult looking back on my childhood, and even as I became more cognizant of it as I grew, that my mom made sure that she had a little bit of time for herself so that she could give the best of herself to us. And I'd seen the contrast in other families, and 20 years later, they're in very different places because of the choices that they made 20 years before. The choices we make today are always contributing somehow to the person that we will be later on. And the person that I will be later on, I'm hoping, is a beloved mother who definitely made time for her children, poured into her family, and kept up the house and cooked meals and supported her husband, but also an interesting woman who has made an effort to personally develop and grow. Prance in the waterline is to Angelica what this color is to me. Two Can Do It from ColourPop. This is just such a beautiful metallic marigold color. I put this in my waterline. Besides that, my eyes are only showing off mascara. And for the rest of my look, I've got the NYX Butter Gloss in the shade Lava Cake. Yes, Lava Cake. I have some bronzer from Physicians Formula, this beautiful peachy blush from Milani 901 Luminoso. And on my cheeks as a highlighter, I've got the frosting palette from Cosmic Beauty, the shade here, Cinnamon Swirl. I think at one point I might have called it Cinnamon Girl. No, it's Cinnamon Swirl. Anyway, let me finish off my thoughts as far as today's video. There were 2 other things I wanted to mention. The first would be finding time for your hobbies. I mentioned that I have more hobbies than I have free time, and I have learned, and am still learning because I don't always get this right or even do it very well, but I've learned that I really have to carve out specific times to focus on these things. So I might end up getting up early in the morning, 4 or 5 a.m. and that gives me at least an hour. It gives me some time to do something to recharge myself, whether that's working out and feeling good about my body, I feel like I'm working towards a goal, or watching a video I hadn't seen yet and wanted to watch, or reading a book, or just having some tea early morning and uninterrupted. Another option would be late at night when the kids are in bed, maybe the dishes are done, the house is quiet, my husband's studying, and I can say, all right, I've got another hour here. What do I want to do most? I never get everything done in one day, but what do I want to put my time into right now? So again, maybe I'll read a book, or maybe I'll go to my art desk and work on my business things or practicing. Or maybe I'll we have an electric piano, so maybe I'll turn the volume way down and play piano for a little while. Just something to fill me, to refresh me a little bit, to help me feel like I haven't completely been buried in the needs of others. And then my third option is the middle of the day, because I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, both of whom at least nap or have some sort of quiet time after lunch. So early afternoon, I know that I'm gonna have a couple of hours. I might need to help my oldest with her schoolwork, but there's probably gonna be some time for me to film or edit a video or work at my art desk, because I have found that by the time nighttime comes along, my hands, my eyes, and my body are tired, and my art at my desk is not nearly as good as it would be if I'm really able to be focused and precise. So I tend to take that activity and put it in the middle of the day when the house is quiet and I have a bit of time without being too tired. So it's just, I found that some things might, something's got to give, and I'm not going to get everything done. I'm not even going to do this well so often, but it's progress. It's something. And secondly, it's important to have a support network around you. Now, maybe you're married and your spouse can help you with this. Maybe you are a single parent and you can ask your best friend or a coworker whom you trust. Hey, I'll watch your kids for a chunk of time so that you can get out. Maybe you can watch my kids another day so that I can get out. Friends at church or other moms that you know from childcare groups or book clubs. Just whoever's in your life can be a great support. And especially if they're older, maybe they are grandparents or their kids are just older, they remember these days. They remember these long, tiring, energy-sucking days. Most of the time, I have found that people are pretty happy to help. So I would love to hear your thoughts about this. I mean, if you are experiencing this now, if you have experienced it, if you're living this life now where you're just burned out and you really need some support, remember to leave a comment, because other people are reading your comments and we might be reading them and thinking, oh, I can offer that to somebody that I know, somebody who doesn't have a support system in place perhaps, and I can say, hey, let me come along beside you and lift you up and encourage you and give you a break. It's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful blessing to recognize the need and then start seeing it around us. So anyway, I appreciate you so much. Please let me know what you think about the eyeshadow look. It did turn out different than I was expecting, because again, I was planning on putting the Allure shimmer in the inner part of my lower lash line. That's what I tend to do if I'm not sure how my palette pull-in is going to work. But I think this look turned out nice, and it was fun to pair that shimmer with the green ones. Honestly, you could get a really, really similar look without the Allure palette by simply using this. And this is a pinky purple shifting shade, so it would definitely give you a different feeling, but still be quite comfortable. So I appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you for giving me your time, for clicking on my video. I hope that you have enjoyed this and will consider liking and subscribing before you go. And I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye.